Minority Leader.
I don't need it. I don't need it, my dear. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, you know, it was really, really tough having to listen to persons come here, deflect, misdirect, change the conversation. The only conversation that we should be having here at this point is whether or not there is corruption, bid rigging happening in the Division of Infrastructure, and whether the Secretary either knew or ought to have known that those activities are taking place under his watch. Madam Presiding Officer, I have been able to clearly, and I hear them casting aspersions that I misrepresent information. Everything I've produced here this afternoon has been documents coming out of the division of this Secretary. Every document I've produced, the letter from California, I didn't concoct that. California is a company who is seeking work with the division, and one of the things that I forgot to mention earlier is the fact that this contractor who wrote refuting the account of the Secretary as to the process of these contracts indicated that the company received an email from the procurement manager at DIQUD at 12:08 p.m. on the 4th of October 2022, which said email had 4 attachments. The said attachments appear to be a letter from the DIQUD to prospective tenderer of 4th October 2022 entitled Request for Proposal. DIQUD, and it referenced the number and the 3 ancillary documents. The company was being asked to submit a proposal for the design and construction of a 25-kilometer dual carriageway, 2 roundabouts, and a drainage system by 7th October 2022 at 1:30 p.m. That is to say, in some 3 days, we had to prepare drawings, calculations, schedules, time for completion, bills of quantities, financial proposal, and specifications as part of the contractor's proposal to guide the construction contract. It simply was not feasible, as must have been known. The financial proposal alone, which accounted for 45 points out of the 100-point award criteria, would have taken considerably longer than 3 days. And Madam Presiding Officer, in this letter, the contractor goes on to note that the email, and I want us to pay close attention to this, because on many occasions, and I recall vividly in a press conference, the Chief Secretary said to all of Tobago that none of his secretaries are involved in the procurement process. But I'm reading here from the contractor who was invited to participate, and he is saying that the email containing the invitation to tender and the request for proposals, which was received by the company on 4th October 2022, was also sent to Trevor James, Secretary of DIQUD. And I have to pause to ask, is this the same Trevor James, the Secretary of Infrastructure, who we are told do not or have no part to play in the procurement process? Upon perusing the email, it was realized, and this is the contractor going on, it was realized that Trevor James was directly involved in the tendering process. This is a clear breach of all procurement process. And he's saying the direct involvement of Trevor James is again unusually irregular and on the face of it unfair and contrary to the practices which govern public procurement in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And the question has to be asked, what was the Secretary of Infrastructure doing so intimately involved? And this is not the first time that this secretary has been tagged in the process of procurement. You will recall that project up at Speyside, Little Tobago. And there you had it again, a contractor who was sole selected, writing to Assemblyman Trevor James, and in writing to Trevor James, referencing a meeting that he had in the secretary's office where they were negotiating the contract. Madam Presiding Officer, and if this is not misbehavior in public office, I don't know what is. If this is not a secretary getting directly involved in the procurement process of a division, I clearly don't know what that is. Madam Presiding Officer, and I want to my good friend, Dr. Faith, and former colleague, we once worked in the Division of Health, went ahead and she brought a document from the OPR, the Office of the Procurement Regulator. And she took us to school on everything procurement. But you know what the secretary didn't tell us? The secretary didn't tell us that right in the Tobago House of Assembly, we have a document called the Procurement Procedural Rules of 2018, made under Section 30 of the Public Procurement and Disposable of Public Procurement Act 2015 as amended. And this sets out the rules to provide for the public procurement and for the retention and disposal of public property in accordance with the principle of good governance, namely accountability, transparency, integrity, and value for money in the Tobago House of Assembly. And Part 4 speaks specific to pre-qualification of suppliers. And I want to take you through specifically to Part 3 of Part 4. And it says, where there are amendments to the documents referred to in Sub-Rule 1, a notice of amendment shall be published in a conspicuous location on the THA's website. I've searched the THA's website and there have been no amendment to this document. 4.31, it says depository of pre-qualified suppliers. A depository of pre-qualified suppliers shall be compiled and maintained by the PCO, subject to the pre-qualification criteria. Part 4.4, publication of pre-qualified suppliers. The list of pre-qualified contractors shall be made available to the procurement officers from the various divisions and shall be utilized for restricted tendering. What is restricted tendering? Restricted tendering is all the tendering processes that excludes open tender. So once you have sole select, selective tendering, you must, it says here clearly, the list of pre-qualified contractors shall be made available to the procurement officers from the various divisions and shall be utilized for restricted tendering, or as we were told, the selective tendering as was done in the division. It goes on to say, pre-qualification period, Part 4.53, where a tender has been generated from a division, and I want to go over this very slowly, only those suppliers who exist on the pre-qualified list at the point in time when the tender is available for solicitation shall be eligible for selection. I want to ask the Secretary when he winds up whether these contractors who were the 3 to 5 pre-selected contractors, whether they were on this pre-qualified list as indicated in this procurement manual, that they shall be, and it's only from those pre-qualified people they should use. And I saw the Secretary using the example of AFFIRM, and it also goes on to say, in terms of AFFIRM, where a division intends to use restricted tendering, only the names included on the list of pre-qualified suppliers at the time shall be utilized, but it gives an exception. It says, save and except where the pre-qualified list does not include a category which is captured by the pre-qualification. So in other words, if within the list, the body of pre-qualified contractors, no one can provide the service, then you therefore have the ability to go out and source that supplier. And in the case of AFFIRM, the type of technology that they provide, they are the persons who provide that in the Caribbean, but they are alternative to what AFFIRM does. It has different alternatives. I think Shore Park utilizes a different supplier doing a different type of system to prevent leaks. But clearly what this document is saying, that for you to, when you are doing restricted or selective tendering, the list, the procurement list, and the pre-qualified contractors from the THA is the list to which you are binded by. And the Secretary must now tell us whether those contractors utilized in the award of those 4 roads, whether they were in fact registered with the PCO as is required in this Procurement Procedural Rules 2018. Madam Presiding Officer, you know, I listened to the councillor, and I don't know if between trying to audition to keep her councillorship or trying to secure a seat in Tobago West, which one was more at the forefront, because I felt like I was lost, like we were in the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, because she kept referencing and debating the government of Trinidad and Tobago when we are here talking about serious business that concerns the people of Tobago. Our business in this house is foremost about the people of Tobago. And I want to place on this record, because this administration have this kind of notion that what we are trying to say is that Trinidadians or Trinidad contractors should not operate in this space. That is far from what we are saying. What we are saying is that whatever the process must be fair to all. And in this award of the 4 contractors, I have been able to prove, by way of even the letter coming from a Tobago contractor, that the process just wasn't fair to the Tobagonians. We are saying the issues are clear now. The issues are clear. The issues have to do with the process, and I've proven in this debate that the very process outlined has been corruptly manipulated by the very division. So you have the procedural rules breached. You have your own 3 to 6 contractors, you said 40, a bag of 40. We don't have that 40. I've been asking for the 40. We don't even know who is the evaluation team, whether they have the capacity. We haven't seen the financial documents. And I've asked, why is this project done at Pigeon Point? Why can't it start? If the issue is that they had the financial capacity, How come now they don't have it to start the project? Who evaluated that? Madam Presiding Officer, and the thing foremost that they have been unable to refute is the cost. The hyperinflated cost. And these things I've said it outside, but I've asked the question and I've received no answer. So I've come inside the house for us to have the discussion, because the last thing I want to see is my colleagues being ushered out of here in a bracelet, and the Chief Secretary asked me about let us go over to the station with to drop off these documents, but the rate he and his administration is going, I don't trust going over there with them, because he might end up inside there with bracelet and they might just hold me as associate. So I'm not going no station with him. Madam Presiding Officer, the point is, the cost, I have been able to show that the cost that this administration already says, you have said that cost is inflated and corrupt. You told us that the cost was corrupt. But here it is, you are awarding contracts for even more inflated costs. Costs that in some instances are doubled. So the question is, isn't your process, isn't your procedure doubly corrupt? Because up to this day, no one has been able to tell me that the cost for the Pigeon Point Road and the bill of quantities are incorrect. Nobody has been able to refute that. And if no one can refute that, then we are accepting that we are in fact paying a higher corrupt cost. Because you told us that you are now going to lock up people because they inflate costs. So if you are locking up people for inflated costs at $1,400, then you need 4 handcuffs to lock up the people who are paying $2,700. And these are the facts. These are the issues. If you listen to this debate outside of myself and minority councillor, you would well believe that we in here talking about Kelvon. Imagine somebody had the gall to come in here to tell Tobago that I have a company. Like I'm not supposed to have a company. Wicked. Madam Presiding Officer, as I conclude this motion, I thought my colleagues would have came in here with an open mind and would have really soul searched and remember why we are all here. We are not here because we are special. We are not here because all of Tobago just suddenly love us, but we are here as bastions and vanguards of the patronage of Tobago. And therefore, it is our responsibility, whether minority, majority, to protect the patronage of Tobago, not simply for those outside, but many of us have young children and they would have children. And when we are comfortable laughing and giggling, you are hearing monies that could do so much to the people of Tobago, being carted away in the way I've described, and nobody sees a problem with this, and all they're telling me I have to go and find police to lock up people. I've brought as much information that I have, but there are places where more information resides. And in some regards, you on this side could get the information. And when I thought this Chief Secretary would have at least said, I would investigate, he has taken the position, well, because your information may not be sufficient to cause a prosecution, then I'm not dealing with that. But this is the same Chief Secretary who beat a zip line for 2 years, who waved a brown envelope and told Tobagonians that a political leader was corrupt, and he was going to the police. Up to now, he ain't reached. He rode into these halls on the basis of allegations, But today he's telling me that he is not going to act on allegations. Hypocrisy at its very highest. And Madam Presiding Officer, I continue to say to Tobago, some will love me and some will not. But what I know, when I finish this 4 years, I would have done my part in ensuring that whatever we have as Tobagonians is used in the best interest of all of Tobago. I thank you.